Two armored knights stand amidst a snowy forest, staring in disbelief that a single person could defeat such a powerful beast alone. High atop the massive frozen corpse of the SS-ranked Ice Dragon Emperor, a lone figure stands victorious against the night sky. The mysterious slayer decides to vanish immediately to avoid attention, complaining that the area has become far too noisy. As he prepares to leave, he wonders what future his actions will lead to, noting that tomorrow is a very important day. With a look of genuine anticipation, he admits to himself that he is really looking forward to the events to come. The scene shifts to a public area where bystanders point and whisper as Lady Letitia of the Orleans ducal family arrives. People marvel at her pale skin and sapphire blue eyes, comparing her delicate appearance to that of a bisque doll. The crowd is captivated by her presence, agreeing that she is every bit as beautiful as the rumors claim. Lady Letitia of Orleans stands elegantly, the subject of everyone's admiring gaze. Inside a humble shop, a tailor nervously presents a finished dress, hoping it meets the noblewoman's expectations. The tailor is overwhelmed with gratitude, declaring it a dream come true that the prestigious Lady Letitia would order from his small shop. Letitia smiles gently at the flustered man and announces that she has one additional request to make. Her quiet demeanor and delicate looks have earned her the title Belle Poupée, leaving onlookers speechless at her dreamlike beauty. Back at home, she announces her return to her parents, showing them the dress she picked up for the national celebration. Her parents are delighted, praising the dress as a work of art with its delicate stitching and beautiful embroidery. While comforting her emotional mother, Letitia internally laughs, maintaining her act as a perfect doll while hiding her bold, warrior-like nature. In her thoughts, she declares that a dress is a woman's battle armor, satisfied that this specific gown is the perfect weapon. She gently admonishes her mother for judging the shop by its location, insisting that prejudice isn't good and skill matters most. With a sharp, confident expression, she internally vows to live by seeing things with her own eyes and deciding for herself. Switching back to her innocent persona, she tells her parents she is nervous and excited to meet her future husband that night. Her father worries about the rumors surrounding Crown Prince Gilbert, specifically that he frequents brothels and has issues with women. Letitia maintains a calm smile, dismissing her father's concerns and asking if such questions are even necessary. She confidently assures them she will ensure the engagement brings the best outcome for the bond between the Imperial and Orlesian families. Her father mentions the prince is known as Red-Eyed Odile, and her parents tear up at how beautifully she has grown. Her mother embraces her tightly, praying that this political engagement will ultimately be the best thing for her daughter. Letitia agrees obediently, while her mother anxiously reminds her to ensure she behaves properly in public. At the ball, she internally cheers, finally, having reached 16 without a fiancé because her father refused all previous proposals. As she navigates the party, she wonders with intense curiosity what kind of person her husband will actually turn out to be. A dark-haired young man with a sharp, bored gaze sits comfortably, radiating an aura of aloof power. Gilbert Rossman, the second prince of the empire, makes his entrance with his infamous red eyes scanning the hall. He approaches Letitia directly, sizing up the woman in the elaborate gown with a cold, critical stare. With open mockery, he asks if she is the one known to everyone as the doll princess. Gilbert bluntly declares that he prefers women with vibrant expressions and that she is not his type at all. He warns her that no matter how beautiful she looks, a mere doll-like appearance will not be enough to win him over. Letitia stands silently under his scrutiny, maintaining her perfect composure while he judges her. Internally, she is amused rather than insulted, thinking that he is quite a feisty one. Gilbert offers to sign an annulment immediately, stating he has no desire for a wife who is merely a piece of art without emotions. Letitia responds with a graceful, silent curtsy, accepting his harsh words without a single verbal retort. She inwardly decides to investigate his rumored crude behavior and brothel visits later to see if they are true. Whispers erupt from the surrounding crowd, calling the prince incompetent and rude for openly insulting his fiancée. Letitia analyzes his behavior, concluding that if he insults people intentionally he is bold, but if he does it without thinking he is simply a fool. She decides she doesn't care about his personality as long as she can appreciate his beautiful face as a work of art. As she smiles radiantly at him, Gilbert abruptly announces that he has finished his greetings. He turns on his heel to leave, but Letitia immediately begins to follow him out of the hall. Gilbert glances back with a sharp look, noticing that she is trailing him. He comments on her silence, asking if she is weak when it comes to pressure, but she simply smiles back. He remarks that despite her messy attire, her movements are beautiful and precise. Observing how she handles a glass, he deduces she has been strictly trained, as true nature reveals itself in unconscious actions. Letitia giggles when he compares her following him to a duckling, and he asks if she learned her skills on her own. He notes with surprise that she is capable of laughing normally after all. He tells her to stop following him, but she suddenly shifts her tone and grabs his attention. Teasingly, she asks if he is embarrassed by his earlier deductions and demands an apology. While he pities her title, she advises him not to believe all rumors, noting that he seems innocent regarding women. The crowd continues to gossip about her father using her as a tool, but Gilbert sees she is completely unfazed. He asks if she is simply used to the malice or just uninterested in the opinions of others. A bitter whisper about the cursed prince reaches his ears, souring the mood. Gilbert declares his mood ruined and announces he is leaving the party immediately. He warns her that he is going to a place no woman would enjoy, but says he might take her if she insists. He tries to shake her off, but she persists in following him. His sharp red eye narrows as he stops to confront her again. Letitia sees a lucky chance to confirm the brothel rumors with her own eyes and refuses to wait. She is determined to escape the silly party and clear up her doubts about him once and for all. Gilbert sighs deeply, realizing he cannot easily deter her from coming along. Standing in the town streets, he warns her not to regret her decision as he finally allows her to join him. The scene shifts to a new location, carrying the weight of the previous encounter into a fresh setting. The narrative moves forward, setting the stage for the unfolding events. Letitia enters the establishment and is immediately overwhelmed, wondering if she has stumbled into paradise as beautiful women offer her fruit and compliments. She sinks into a comfortable couch surrounded by beautiful women and delicious fruit, admitting she wouldn't blame herself if she stayed glued to this spot forever. Flustered by the attention, she mentally cries out that the situation is completely beyond her control. Gilbert watches in silence as the women fawn over his fiancée, calling her adorable and fighting for their turn to pamper her. Enjoying the affection, Letitia boldly asks if marrying Gilbert would grant her the wonderful privilege of visiting this place whenever she pleases. Gilbert looks at her with sheer bafflement, while Letitia internally celebrates the idea of frequenting such a parlor as an amazing perk. Observing him, Letitia notes that her supposed fiancé isn't playing along with the beautiful women and instead sits looking visibly bored. She scans the dim but cozy atmosphere, wondering if his detachment implies he is merely inspecting the establishment. Noting that most customers stick to conversation while others head to private rooms, she deduces the true adult nature of the business. She sips her drink, pleasantly surprised that the venue lacks the blatant debauchery she had expected to find. The hostesses are shocked to learn she is Gilbert's fiancée, questioning why Belsama was brought to such a place. A heavy silence falls over the group as the women process the revelation while Gilbert remains brooding. One of the women quickly reassures Letitia that Gilbert hasn't crossed any lines with them, chastising another for speaking out of turn. Gilbert interrupts coldly, stating there is no reason for the doll princess to marry him since the engagement will soon be annulled anyway. He looms over her with an intense gaze, accusing her of being part of a conspiracy sent to eliminate him. Letitia stares back, captivated not by fear but by the noble beauty of his crimson-red eyes. She finds herself drowning in their brilliance, thinking they are more stunning than any jewel she has ever seen. Gilbert flinches, caught off guard by the intensity of her unwavering stare. Unnerved, he demands to know what she is and orders her to stop looking at him with such an expression. When she calls his eyes beautiful, he accuses her of lying, unable to believe her words. He confesses with raw intensity that he hates his eyes so much he wants to tear them out at the roots. Convinced she must find him disgusting deep down, he projects his own self-loathing onto her. Gilbert abruptly storms out of the room, leaving Letitia alone with her thoughts. Watching the door close, she suspects the claim that he stayed completely distant from the girls is a lie, sensing he sought something here. She understands that for him, clinging to warmth in such a place was likely the only way to survive his harsh reality. Her thoughts drift to his title, the Cursed Prince, as she contemplates the weight of that label. She recalls reading documents and books about the so-called curse when her engagement was first announced. History remembers the red-eyed royals as foolish kings who started wars, madmen who poisoned brothers, and traitors against the crown. These princes, who allegedly caused the kingdom's downfall, were all born with red eyes and treated as anomalies of nature. The mutation appeared periodically like a mysterious curse, resembling the color of blood as if the devil had bewitched them. What started as mockery and coincidence eventually turned into fear, marking them as cursed children. The label of cursed child became a heavy burden placed upon them by a fearful society. Letitia dismisses the idea that eye color could be a curse as utter nonsense. She reasons that the so-called curse is a myth and that their crimes were simply the result of psychological collapse from being unable to express feelings. She concludes that isolation and lack of love created the monster, believing none of it would have happened if someone had just cared for them. Snapping back to the present, she happily tells the women she will keep them company until Gilbert returns, much to their delight. Laura reveals that Gilbert is actually the savior of this place and everyone loves being near him, though he rarely joins the table. Another woman scolds Laura for revealing secrets, mentioning that the shop used to be in a bad state before Gilbert intervened. Letitia unleashes a weaponized puppy dog look, begging them to tell her more about Gilbert's story. The women are instantly defeated by her cuteness, screaming that she is an angel and wanting to hug her. While one woman worries about commoners touching a ducal daughter, the others can't resist embracing the adorable fiancé. Laura agrees to speak, revealing that this place was once a hangout for thugs before Gilbert changed it. She asks if Letitia has heard of mercenary knights, independent warriors who take on tasks like fighting magical beasts. She explains that the world of these knights is quite diverse. While lower ranks struggle and can be violent, SS rank knights are extremely rare and respected even by commanders. Recalling the harsh challenges of her past, Laura reflects on how the behavior of her former customers could hardly be described as polite. The atmosphere shifts instantly as Gilbert arrives, his commanding presence drawing the gaze of everyone in the room. Laura feels immense relief as the unruly customers leave, while Gilbert transforms the shop into a space of elegance simply by sitting in the center. The store gains fame as Gilbert's favorite spot, and Laura blushes while admiring the astonishing influence of his regal personality. Gilbert begins visiting frequently to teach Laura proper service, sometimes finding her in a bunny outfit as he offers his guidance. Belle and the other maids clarify that Gilbert never actually treated the girls in the store poorly, correcting Laura's assumption. Laura realizes his guidance was purely about manners, and her innocence shines as she only wants to highlight his magnificent character. The maids whisper that despite his stern appearance, Gilbert is actually a gentleman and extremely kind. Surrounded by supportive friends, the girls tease Laura about how affectionately she speaks of her distinctive fiancé. Gilbert sternly scolds someone for feeding the doll princess too many sweets, worried she might become overweight. Laura stares in shock as a waiter presents a perfectly prepared dish that catches her completely off guard. The semicircular omelette is a visual masterpiece, boasting a golden hue without a single burn mark and adorned with vibrant red sauce. Marveling at the delicious scent, Laura wonders if Gilbert specifically went back to ask the chef to prepare this special dish. Gilbert holds the plate as Laura playfully complains that it is unfair for him to have such a meal while she wants to eat too. The maids ask if the dish is for Belle, but Laura is stunned when Gilbert denies it, leaving everyone confused. Blushing and looking away, Gilbert insists he ordered the dish for no specific reason and not for anyone in particular. The maids look on with knowing smirks while Gilbert awkwardly maintains that he ordered the food without a reason. Gilbert mutters that he should have eaten earlier, while Laura feels tortured having such a delicious meal placed right in front of her. The rich sauce drips tantalizingly down the fluffy egg, mesmerizing Laura as she stares at the plate. Gilbert points out that Laura was too busy watching him to eat anything herself, signaling his intent. Noting that she looks thin, Gilbert gently scolds her and insists she needs to take better care of her meals. Laura thanks him profusely, finally recognizing that his stern behavior is actually a mask for his true kindness. Dismissing the idea that she can eat on her own, Gilbert asks if he may feed her, surprising her with the intimate gesture. Laura flusters and tries to argue that serving is her job, but Gilbert insists she take a break while observing her ears and tail. Unable to resist, Laura accepts the bite and melts into bliss, letting out a soft sound of delight. She raves about the incredible taste, describing how the sweet meat and crisp egg melt in her mouth, declaring the chef a genius. Gilbert listens quietly with a subtle reaction as Laura continues to praise the culinary skills behind the meal. He admits he isn't as graceful as she thinks but praises her elegance, noting that she truly eats like a doll princess. When Laura expresses a desire to thank the chef personally, a maid reveals that Gilbert prepared the dish himself. Laura freezes in shock, struggling to process the revelation that her fiancé cooked the meal. Looking embarrassed, Gilbert tells her she can leave it if she doesn't like it, mumbling that he just had to do it. Laura quickly assures him it is absolutely delicious, though she remains curious about why he felt compelled to cook. Gilbert watches her affectionate reaction, his cheeks flushing as he quietly accepts her praise. Laura happily continues eating, thinking about how kind he is, while Gilbert watches her with a soft expression. A sudden realization hits Laura, causing her to freeze mid-bite with a flushed face. She realizes she accidentally confessed out loud that she likes kind men, causing her to panic and stammer. The narrative shifts to a dark past involving a poisoning scandal targeting the second prince, where the culprit remains at large. Since that incident, the prince stopped eating food prepared by others and refuses to touch glasses at banquets due to a lack of trust. He is forced to attend events without guards despite the danger, knowing someone out there wishes for his demise. Laura realizes the heavy significance behind his words when he said he had to cook the meal himself. Sitting beside him, Laura looks at Gilbert with a newfound understanding of the burden he carries. She contemplates the reality of his situation, her expression turning serious and determined. Laura silently vows to approach him with caution and care, doing everything in her power to protect him from further pain. The story opens in a lavish, high-class establishment where elegant patrons enjoy music and conversation under the warm glow of ornate chandeliers. A maid strikes up a conversation with Alicia, addressing her as Belle-Sama, and inquiring about her connection to the Orlesian family. Laura interrupts to apologize for the question but immediately pivots to ask if they have heard of the Emperor of the Frost Dragon. She explains that this SS-ranked mercenary knight commands the Frost Dragon and possesses a captivating appearance with shimmering silver hair. Laura swoons over the mystery surrounding him, noting that no one knows his real name or where he comes from. The maid apologizes, doubting a noble lady would be interested in mercenaries, while Laura continues to rave about his beautiful silver hair. Alicia finds the detail about silver hair interesting, while the maid turns to Gilbert and asks for his opinion on the mysterious emperor. Gilbert scoffs at the rumors, suggesting the secrecy implies the figure is either a noble's plaything or perhaps not even human. The maid teases Gilbert about his tone, but he insists that the excessive mystery makes the person highly suspicious rather than admirable. He firmly denies being jealous as the girls giggle at his defensive reaction, maintaining that his skepticism is purely logical. The atmosphere shatters as a group of rough men barges into the lounge, loudly demanding to know where they are. Alicia freezes in terror as she recognizes the intruders, her expression shifting instantly from amusement to fear. A bald, muscular thug approaches their table with a menacing grin, greeting Alicia with a chilling familiarity. Gilbert intervenes immediately, telling the man he must register at reception, while Alicia demands to know what he wants. The thug dismisses the rules as boring and leers at Alicia, claiming he traveled a long way just to see her. Laura trembles with suppressed rage, struggling to stay calm in the face of such inappropriate behavior. The terrified maid stammers, asking Laura who these threatening men are as they surround the table. Gilbert observes Alicia's genuine fear and realizes this is not a simple disturbance but a serious threat. Laura reassures the trembling Alicia, promising that she is right there with her and urging her not to worry. The maid explains that these men are low-ranking knights and former patrons who were known for being violent. Laura notes that they likely couldn't afford the place after its rating increased, which explains why she felt relieved at their absence until now. Gilbert confronts the thugs, asking if they realize who they are behaving this way in front of, while the maid worries about the chaos. The bald thug mocks Gilbert's authority, poking his forehead disrespectfully while laughing off his status as Prince Gilbert. Laura stares in absolute shock, unable to comprehend that someone would dare to touch a member of the royal family. She screams for the thug to stop, declaring that touching Gilbert is strictly forbidden. Gilbert calmly grabs the thug's wrist, ordering Alicia to step back as he warns the man that he has crossed the line. Glaring with intense, glowing eyes, Gilbert tells the thug that he will face consequences for his actions. The thug mocks them for having no guards to enforce punishment, confident that they are vulnerable without protection. Gilbert's demeanor shifts, causing Laura to look at him in confusion as he prepares to handle the situation himself. The thug sneers, making a sarcastic comment about gender equality and calling Gilbert's resistance a wise move. He continues to taunt Gilbert, challenging him by asking what he plans to do since there are no guards to save them. Gilbert stands his ground, declaring that he is the second prince of the Rossmann Empire and that fact remains unchanged regardless of his escort. The girls watch in tense silence, realizing the situation is about to escalate into violence. The group of thugs bursts into raucous laughter, finding Gilbert's declaration of authority hilarious. They openly mock him, confirming they know exactly who he is and simply do not care. One thug reveals they could no longer approach the establishment because it changed so much after Gilbert arrived. He explains their plan to challenge Gilbert's authority to reclaim their position, finding the current state of the shop annoying. The girls scream in terror as the confrontation reaches its breaking point. Intense eyes focus sharply as Laura steels herself for the dangerous path ahead. Laura confirms she is fully prepared for the severe consequences that may arise from approaching the prince. A massive thug lunges forward with sudden, terrifying speed to initiate the attack. A brutal, high-impact kick sends Gilbert crashing to the floor, leaving him defenseless against the assault. The thug mocks the fallen prince, sneering that he is hardly indispensable as a member of the royal family while Gilbert groans in pain. Laura quickly assesses that Gilbert has no visible bleeding and tries to rush to his aid, but he weakly pushes her away to protect her. Gilbert desperately warns her to stay away, but the thug notices the new, charming young lady and turns his predatory attention toward her. Laura screams for them to stop while a maid frantically tries to defuse the situation by introducing her as Letitia from the Orlesian family. The thugs laugh in disbelief that the famous Belle Poupée would be in such a place, and the leader lewdly invites her to spend time with him instead. Laura coldly dissects his character, calling his actions barbaric and his appearance revolting as he aggressively grabs her chin. She catches his wrist in a vice-like grip, her expression darkening as she declares that she will not overlook his insolence. In a flashback, Gilbert tries to shield her, urging her to hide behind him and wait for the right moment to escape. Laura recalls finding his self-sacrificing plan boring, contrasting it with his earlier surprise that she agreed to the engagement so easily. He had admitted to being tired of everything and told her she was free to leave if she didn't want him, expressing his gratitude regardless. Gilbert had vowed to formally break their engagement upon returning to the palace to ensure she wouldn't be dragged down by his burdens. Back in the present, the memory of him admitting he might not return safely weighs heavily as the thugs loom over them. He had apologized for making her feel afraid, a sentiment that fuels Laura's current rage. Laura decides that such an attack on him is unforgivable and deserves the harshest possible punishment. She realizes the thug's true target has always been the second prince, Gilbert, and that this is a premeditated assassination attempt. A close-up reveals Gilbert's battered state, highlighting the gravity of the danger he is in. The thugs realize Gilbert is alone and declare it a trap, gleefully preparing to take him down without mercy. Eyes glowing with terrifying intensity, Laura steps forward and boldly claims Gilbert as her dear husband. The thug pauses in confusion as Laura commands him with chilling authority to let go of Gilbert's hand. When he questions her, she repeats the order, demanding to know who gave him permission to touch her husband. She threatens to remove his ears if he fails to understand her, her voice dripping with dangerous intent. The pressure mounts as Laura demands an immediate response, her presence overwhelming the thugs. She declares them unworthy of Gilbert's attention and prepares to handle them herself, noting that red eyes signify superior intelligence. With a sinister smile, Laura promises to ensure they are fully satisfied, hinting at the violence she is about to unleash. The bald mercenary and the crowd stand frozen in absolute shock as the atmosphere in the room shifts dramatically. Letitia leans intimately into the Lord's embrace, whispering that he has finally spoken her true name aloud. Panicked by the dangerous situation, the Lord tries to shield her, but she insists on expressing her love right there. He touches her face in confusion while she gazes back with a mischievous and affectionate smile. Ignoring the peril, she vows to express her devotion with all her might while he struggles to process her intensity. The Lord glances back at the terrified Alicia and Laura, urging Letitia to wait because their friends are still in grave danger. Caressing his cheek, Letitia silently vows that she will not allow her lord to drown in despair ever again. She pleads with him to wait, determined to bring the life back into his eyes. Her eyes glow with a supernatural intensity as she prepares to unleash her true power. The Lord winces, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in the air and the touch of her hand. Letitia smiles with satisfaction, noting that his expression looks quite nice despite the chaos. He blushes furiously, stammering in confusion as he realizes exactly how close she is. Struck by his reaction, she mentally squeals over how incredibly cute he looks when he is shy. Her internal monologue races with a desperate desire to reveal his face and smother him with love immediately. The bald mercenary interrupts the moment with a roar, throwing a punch while yelling that they are fools for leaving their backs exposed. The attack lands with a heavy impact, sending shockwaves through the air. Leotitia mocks the mercenary's feeble attempt, summoning ice dragons that automatically track their target. She ridicules him for getting demoted to rank E and notes that his face looks suspiciously familiar. Massive ice dragons materialize behind her, and the mercenary realizes with horror that they look exactly like a legendary power. Laughing coldly, she reveals she knows he was hired via a noble's instruction manual and is merely being used as a disposable tool. She radiates an overwhelming aura as the terrified mercenary demands to know who she really is. Removing her disguise, she declares herself as Leotitia of the Orlesian Duchy, also known as the Doll Princess. Magic swirls around her in a blinding light as she activates the transformation circle beneath her feet. The onlookers gasp in disbelief as her form shifts, leaving the mercenary screaming that it is impossible. A sharp eye opens within the light, focusing intently on the ornate ring adorning a transforming hand. A dashing man with spiky white hair emerges from the light, standing confidently in a sharp suit. The mercenary screams in absolute terror, recognizing him as the legendary Ice Dragon Emperor. The crowd erupts into panic and awe, unable to comprehend that the Ice Dragon Emperor is standing before them. With a single command, the Emperor freezes the air itself. The mercenary is instantly encased in jagged ice, his attack stopped cold before it could even connect. The Emperor holds up the Orlesian family heirloom, revealing the source of the transformation magic. He explains to the blushing lord that the ring is a reverse magic tool, confirming the lord's suspicion. This unique artifact allows the user to reverse their gender and form at will. The lord covers his face, questioning why he reacted so shyly now that he knows the truth. Leotitia explains that becoming a male mercenary knight was a more suitable form for helping people without drawing attention. He adds that his mother would have cried if she knew her daughter was taking such risks, so the male disguise was necessary. The lord blushes, realizing that Leotitia's male form is much more acceptable to the public than her persona as Belle Bobby. Leotitia wonders aloud if this means he is supposed to take over as the lord here, finding the situation amusing. The frozen mercenary curses the ice dragon, but Leotitia dismisses the insult with a calm demeanor. Looking over the frozen destruction, Leotitia remarks that the scene looks quite spectacular now. He corrects the mercenary's theory, stating that he didn't disguise himself as the doll princess to infiltrate, but rather the opposite. He clarifies that he is Leotitia, meaning the beauty doll and the Ice Dragon Emperor are the exact same person. The mercenary stares in stunned silence as Leotitia concludes that she simply used the magic tool to alter her form slightly. Leotitia, still in her male guise, dismisses the mercenary's shock by explaining she merely added a physical touch since Gilbert's authority wasn't enough to subdue him. He grippingly crushes the ice in his hand, taunting that for people like the mercenary, pure strength is far more effective than status. Gesturing to the room, he declares that as Gilbert's wife, it is only natural for him to protect the place his partner risked his life for. Leotitia laughs at the irony of calling herself a wife while in this male form and prepares to release the transformation spell. The magic dissipates to reveal Leotitia in her true doll princess form, leaving the crowd in awe that both powerful figures are the same person. She explains with a smirk that she hid her true power because her mother feared she would remain unmarried if the world knew the truth. Turning to Gilbert, she announces that she has finally found someone who suits her and is ready to leave home for good. With a radiant and predatory smile, she proposes directly, asking Gilbert if he will marry her. Gilbert hesitates, paralyzed by his deep-seated insecurity, asking if someone carrying his curse can truly be suitable for her. Leotitia gently cups his face, firmly telling him that his eyes have never been a curse to her. She tenderly touches his cheek, silencing his doubts with an intimate and reassuring gesture. Gazing deep into his soul, she whispers that his eyes are simply beautiful. Her expression softens into a look of pure, unadulterated affection as she watches him. She reveals she investigated him herself despite her father's warnings, refusing to call something so beautiful a curse. Leotitia confesses that she has come to admire him deeply, and that is all that matters to her. Gilbert is struck silent, blushing furiously as her honest words pierce through his years of self-loathing. She theorizes that his curse effect is just his tendency to overthink and hide his feelings, promising to accept everything about him. Vowing to make his life happy, she urges him never to hesitate in relying on her for support. Teasingly, she warns that she will force him to rely on her if he doesn't do it willingly, though she understands it is sudden. Gilbert asks how this happened, and she suggests with a sly smile that they find out together. Overwhelmed by her intensity, Gilbert covers his face and admits he cannot resist her charm any longer. The frozen mercenary interrupts the romantic moment, awkwardly asking if they can save the talk for later. Leonticia's expression instantly darkens into a terrifying glare at the rude interruption. She threatens to freeze him with absolute ice if he doesn't stay quiet while she is busy seducing her husband. Turning back to Gilbert with a smile, she asks if there is anything specific he wishes for her to do. She encourages him to speak honestly and ask for whatever he wants, no matter what it is. Radiating confidence and power, she promises to grant absolutely any wish he desires. Gilbert grips her hand tightly, stammering as he tries to voice his deepest desire. He lowers his head and quietly asks her to simply pat him on the head. Leonticia blinks in surprise, caught off guard by the unexpected simplicity of his request. Gilbert confesses he has always wanted someone to praise him and tell him that his existence matters. Leonticia listens intently, her heart softening as she realizes the depth of his loneliness. He explains that as the cursed prince abandoned by everyone, his eyes were always a source of fear. More than hearing, "I love you," he admits he desperately needs someone to tell him he is a good person. Leonticia is deeply moved, thinking about how innocent and touching his request is. She reflects on the many men who tried to woo her by promising to protect her as if she were a delicate flower. In truth, she never wished to be protected and only played the role of a fake princess while ignoring them all. She realizes she was always drawn to beautiful men she wanted to protect, and Gilbert is the first to love her entire self. Clutching her chest, she questions the strange, overwhelming feeling rising within her. Blushing furiously, she wonders if this intense sensation is what people call a racing heart. Leonticia pets Gilbert's head affectionately, overwhelmed by her love and admitting she can no longer resist the urge to spoil him. She urges him to share his pain and struggles from now on, affirming that he is a good person who has endured far too much alone. Leonticia declares her decision to protect him for life and sternly warns him never to speak of breaking their engagement again. Gilbert vows to stay by her side forever, surrendering himself completely to drown in her love. They embrace tightly, finding solace and warmth in each other's arms amidst the magical sparkles. The frozen mercenaries interrupt the moment, fearfully asking what will happen to them now that they are helpless. Leonticia dismisses them, stating she will send them to her father for interrogation so she can focus on her mission to spoil Gilbert. She explains that handing them to Adolf is the best option to ensure the truth isn't buried by political pressure within the Imperial Guards. Her ice dragons loom menacingly behind her as she prepares to dispatch the captives. The mercenaries stammer in confusion about how they will be transported, while Leonticia mocks their obvious question. With a chilling smile, she announces that she will send them away herself. She clarifies that the method of transport will be quite direct. A blast of force sends the screaming mercenaries flying out of the building as Leonticia giggles at their departure. She scoops Gilbert up in a princess carry, declaring that she needs to comfort her dear husband after all this stress. Gilbert panics about her intentions as she asks Alicia if the room behind the nearby door is currently empty. Flustered and misunderstanding the situation, Alicia stammers that she lacks experience in such matters but isn't scared. Alicia blushes deeply, rambling that she would be happy if Leonticia is kind to her, seemingly expecting to join in. She stares in awe, whispering that Leonticia is even more beautiful than she imagined. Leonticia battles an internal conflict between her desire to devour him and her mind's resolve to simply spoil him endlessly. Gilbert shyly asks if she really won't do anything, prompting her to admit her restraint barely won, though the private room is tempting. Seeing his expectant face makes her happy, but she teases him by reaffirming that she will only spoil him for now. She calls her husband incredibly cute, leaving him speechless and blushing in her arms. Turning to the others, she excuses herself and announces that she will be borrowing the room for a moment. Laura observes that she has never seen the prince make such an expression, noting that despite the shock, they seem perfect together. Alicia watches them leave with a sigh, admitting that she is completely jealous of Mr. Gilbert's position. Leonticia reads a letter with a serious expression, sensing that a new complication has arisen. She sighs heavily, noting that the situation has become a bit troublesome and requires her attention. Composing herself, she brings out fresh cookies, telling Gilbert she baked them specifically to suit his tastes. She presents the tray of sweets with a gentle smile, hiding her inner concerns. Gilbert thanks her but notices her distraction, asking softly if anything is troubling her. Leonticia deflects, claiming it is just a letter from home, but asserts that he is more important right now. Gilbert frowns with jealousy, asking if he is really her #1 priority since she seems preoccupied. She giggles at his pout, telling him that his shy possessiveness makes him truly adorable. Leoticia teases that if he gets used to this treatment, she will become even more forward with her affection. The narrator notes that they have officially transitioned from fiancés to a happily married couple. The scene shifts to the Imperial Palace, where the Emperor reviews a report about the recent incident. The Emperor complains about the hassle of noble seals while waiting for Prince Gilbert to arrive. Gilbert enters the room just in time, announcing that he has finished his official duties. The Emperor introduces the guest, revealing that Duke Orlesian is present for the meeting. Gilbert is startled to see the Duke, but his attention instantly locks onto Leoticia standing nearby. Ignoring the political tension, Gilbert immediately asks Leoticia for praise for working hard. Leoticia pets his head affectionately, calling him a good boy and a truly adorable husband. Gilbert melts completely under her touch, basking in the praise while the others watch in silence. The room falls quiet as the powerful figures witness the prince's complete submission to his wife. The tension in the office dissipates, replaced by the warm atmosphere of the couple's interaction. The Duke and Emperor discuss the wedding, with the Duke entrusting his daughter to handle Gilbert's quirks. The narrative confirms that following their engagement, they officially became husband and wife. Back in the present, Leoticia describes the crisp Florentines and snowball cookies she prepared. She asks which one he wants to try first, mentioning she made chocolate-dipped ones just for him. Gilbert hesitantly recalls that he once claimed to prefer more mature and elegant women. He admits that he did say those things in the past, acknowledging the irony of his current state. Gazing at her, he declares that none of those past preferences matter now that he is with her. He confesses he was wrong about what he wanted, accepting his desire to be spoiled. Mumbling about pretending to be a cat, he tries to justify his need for her attention. Leoticia holds up a cookie as if to feed him, and Gilbert leans in with anticipation. She suddenly pulls it back, quoting that one shouldn't spoil a pet because they need to eat alone. Gilbert groans in frustration and disappointment as the treat is denied at the last second. Leoticia laughs mischievously, admitting that she just wanted to tease him because he is being mean. Her expression turns serious as she warns him that she may need to leave his side for a while. She reveals that the trouble concerns her father and spreading rumors of the Orlesian family's downfall. Leoticia explains that her family is being targeted because they are a threat to those who want Gilbert gone. She deduces that the enemies are trying to discredit her family from within to weaken Gilbert's support. Showing him the letter from her father, she confirms that the plot is already in motion. She smiles confidently, assuring him that everything is fine because she is now involved. Leoticia declares that she is excellent at strategy games and will make the enemies dance in the palm of her hand. Leoticia smiles with a knowing glint in her eyes, telling Gilbert that he is a frighteningly sharp husband for seeing through her so easily. Gilbert urges her to compliment him more, declaring that he refuses to let even a single second of their time together be interrupted. She pets his head while calling him a good boy, internally screaming that his overwhelming cuteness might just be the death of her. Gazing out at the garden, Gilbert turns serious and quietly asks if she intends to stay with him forever. He leans in with intense, searching eyes, asking if she has grown to hate him or found someone else. Gilbert blushes furiously as he demands to know who else could possibly make her as happy as he does. He confesses that his body and heart are inseparable from her, adding that her cooking has completely captivated him. Kissing her palm, he admits that she has successfully captured his heart through his stomach, proving the old saying true. Leoticia vows to keep cooking for him, expressing her desire to fuel the daily changes in his blood, skin, and bones. She declares that she wants to be the one who physically shapes his existence, promising to always remain by his side. Leoticia bursts into happy laughter, completely charmed by the moment and calling her husband truly adorable. Summoning her ice dragon, she remarks that her compliance depends on the situation but promises to make her best effort. The massive ice dragon lunges forward to intercept a magical projectile flying toward them. The dragon devours the incoming attack in a single bite, neutralizing the threat with a dull thud. Smoke curls from the dragon's mouth as it looks surprisingly pleased with itself for swallowing the explosion. Leoticia analyzes the compressed magic of the attack, realizing their enemies have abandoned covert tactics for brute force. She mocks the naivety of such a childish assault, swearing to Gilbert that she will protect him with her life. Holding his face gently, she reassures him not to be afraid because she will always be right there. Gilbert smiles warmly, his anxiety melting away as he accepts her reassurance. Leotitia pledges to accept all his wishes and thoughts, vowing as his wife to make them a reality. Gilbert muses about a simple life, but Leotitia doubts that satisfies him and offers to help him reign as emperor if he desires. He asks if she will stay until the end, deciding that sitting on a throne might not be so bad if she is there. With a captivating smile, Gilbert declares that he wants to stay by her side even after death separates them. Leotitia laughs heartily at his intensity, telling him that his heavy love is exactly what makes him so lovable. The narrative shifts to the emperor on his throne, foreshadowing that the couple's future may be fraught with difficulties. A sharp-eyed woman watches from a window, suggesting that their path is filled with treacherous obstacles. A man in uniform looks back with a smirk, hinting at the challenges awaiting them. A bird lands on a finger as the narrator notes that with Leotitia's strength and Gilbert's intellect, they are unstoppable. Sitting together in the garden, they complement each other's weaknesses, ready to overcome all obstacles and live happily. The story concludes with the promise of their shared future, marking the beginning of the tale of a newlywed couple. Gilbert recalls the simple greetings of the people, their voices echoing in his mind as he stands in silence. He reflects that those mundane words were the lifeline that saved him countless times from the darkness. Mentally addressing Leotitia, he credits her as the only one who treated him as a human and kept him from hating the world. His gaze softens as he looks at her smiling face, realizing she is the anchor that allowed him to hold onto himself. Overwhelmed with emotion, he acknowledges that he has been blessed with more happiness than his hands can carry. A shadow of pain crosses his heart as he fears he may never get the chance to tell her his gratitude in person. The scene shifts to Christoph's celebration party where Leotitia apologizes for dragging Gilbert into the social event. Gilbert blushes as Leotitia happily declares that attending as his wife is only natural since Christoph is his brother. The narrative introduces Christoph Rossmann, the dashing next heir to the throne and Gilbert's half-brother. Leotitia promises to cook a feast of his favorite dishes later, lamenting that the party ruined their dinner plans. A messenger interrupts their moment, informing Gilbert that His Majesty the Emperor is demanding his presence immediately. Gilbert hesitates and tries to refuse, unwilling to leave his wife alone, but Leotitia urges him to go. She smiles reassuringly, promising to be a good girl and wait patiently for her husband's return. Gilbert blushes furiously while patting her head, murmuring that he understands and will be back soon. His expression instantly shifts from warmth to cold indifference as he walks away from her. Entering the audience chamber, he coldly questions why the emperor called for him instead of the celebrated Prince Christoph. Gilbert remarks with a sharp edge that he believes he has already sufficiently repaid any debts to His Majesty. The emperor points out the festivities, asking why Gilbert isn't enjoying the party since the empress is so enthusiastic. Gilbert counters that the bright lights of the party cast darker shadows, urging them to hurry up. He sits opposite the emperor, his demeanor radiating annoyance and a desire to be elsewhere. The narrative emphasizes the duality of the situation, contrasting the celebration outside with the tension inside. Gilbert attempts to refuse the request, stating he wants to return to Leotitia, but the emperor insists this is the perfect time. The emperor commands him to wait, desperate to keep him in the room for the discussion. Locking eyes with his son, the emperor admits that they desperately need Gilbert's intellect for this crisis. Gilbert clicks his tongue in irritation, clearly unhappy about being dragged into political mess. He asks about the classification level, deducing instantly that the issue concerns magic stones and the Weiss Republic. The emperor confirms his suspicion, noting that it is hardly a secret worth keeping from someone like Gilbert. The narration explains that magic stones are crucial for both daily life and crafting devastating weapons of war. Unlike simple elemental tools, complex magic tools like Leotitia's ring are carved with intricate spells. These rare artifacts are classified separately due to their unique properties and scarcity. Magic stones are established as an essential resource that underpins the existence of people in this world. The Rossmann Empire's status as a top producer is now becoming a dangerous liability. Rumors of war led to an international ban on exporting magic stones to the Weiss Republic. However, someone is secretly violating the treaty and smuggling stones to the potential enemy. Gilbert summarizes the plight, noting that the Rossmann Empire is now under suspicion of fueling the enemy. He suggests that rather than proving a negative, the empire should focus on earning the unwavering trust of other nations. The emperor slides a document forward, grimly stating that the situation is far more complex than that. Reading the investigation report, Gilbert realizes with shock that the smugglers are likely high-ranking insiders. The Emperor explains that a large-scale investigation would spook the culprits, who are hiding within their own ranks. Desperate and out of options, the Emperor bows his head and begs Gilbert to lend his aid. Gilbert laughs darkly at the irony, asking if the Emperor truly dares to speak of trust to the infamous cursed prince. He declares with a chilling smile that he is the single person most capable of bringing total ruin to this nation. The Emperor counters by pointing out that despite those threats, Gilbert is currently enjoying a blissful newlywed life with Lady Letitia. Gilbert freezes in shock at the statement while the Emperor reasons that if there were a risk of betrayal, it would be due to manipulation. However, the Emperor dismisses the idea, arguing that Letitia's personality is too straightforward and honorable for underhanded schemes. Gilbert blushes and agrees, his expression softening as he confirms that his wife is indeed exactly as described. He gushes about her, declaring that Letitia is the most magnificent, strong-willed, and lively woman in the entire world. The Emperor hands over a document containing the names of the potential suspects identified so far. Gilbert scans the list with a sharp gaze, noting that while the culprit isn't guaranteed to be there, it's a start. He agrees to investigate, darkly adding that he might strangle the traitor and present the corpse as a gift if the mood strikes. With a casual wave, he exits the room, warning the Emperor not to get his hopes up too high. The Emperor is left trembling in his chair, overwhelmed by the terrifying pressure his son exuded during the meeting. Gilbert walks away down the corridor, humming a happy tune now that he can return to his wife. The Emperor notices the documents left behind but realizes Gilbert's intellect allowed him to memorize everything in a single glance. He reflects on the cursed red eyes, admitting that with Letitia to keep him grounded, no one is more reliable than the prince. The narrative notes that since his marriage, Gilbert has devoted himself to his duties and significantly contributed to the empire's stability. The Emperor chuckles, understanding that Gilbert's newfound dedication is entirely driven by his desire to secure a peaceful life for Letitia. He shudders as he recalls Gilbert's otherworldly gaze, admitting that the breathtaking beauty of those eyes sends chills down his spine. Shaking off the fear, the Emperor wonders aloud about the domestic life his son leads with such a fascinating wife. Letitia stands isolated amidst the murmurs of the party, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd to see if she is truly alone. A waiter approaches with a silver tray, offering a glass of champagne to break her momentary solitude. She flashes a practiced, dazzling smile that completely masks the boredom lurking behind her eyes. Letitia declines the drink with perfect grace, internally congratulating herself on maintaining the flawless facade of a noble lady. Her mind wanders to the recent battle at the royal court, marveling that she still has to play the role of the fragile Belle Poupée despite her display of power. She recalls how the rumors of the Ice Dragon Emperor were laughed off as ridiculous nonsense, allowing her secret to remain safe. Thanks to the cover-up, only a select few, including Gilbert and her father, know the terrifying truth behind her dual identity. Letitia admits that keeping the doll princess and the Dragon Emperor as separate entities is tactically useful, even if she yearns to drop the mask. A mischievous thought crosses her mind as she contemplates what kind of chaos she could unleash next to entertain herself. The Master of Ceremonies silences the room to announce the celebration of Crown Prince Christoph's miraculous return. Christoph Rossmann steps onto the balcony, the man once believed dead now hailed as the Immortal by the adoring crowd. The narrative flashes back to the kingdom's collective shock and grief when the news of his death first spread. It recounts the tragic day he fell from a treacherous mountain path during a relentless rainstorm. Given the height of the fall and the conditions, everyone had accepted that survival was an absolute impossibility. Even after a thorough investigation yielded no body, the kingdom had no choice but to mourn his loss. 6 months later, the prince shocked the world by returning to the palace alive. Initially, the people suspected an impostor, scrutinizing his face and voice for any sign of deceit. The rumors were silenced only when Empress Morgan herself embraced him, declaring him to be her true son. Aside from some scarring from the accident and a stiff expression, he was physically the same man. His return was a stroke of luck for the kingdom, as it removed the burden of succession from Gilbert, who would have been next in line. Letitia recalls the dark whispers from that time, where nobles claimed the country would be doomed if the cursed prince took the throne. She realizes Gilbert must have been acutely aware of the hostility directed at him, hiding his pain behind a constant smile. The very people now smiling at Christoph are the same hypocrites who once wished for Gilbert's death. It is nothing short of a miracle that Gilbert didn't break under the weight of such overwhelming malice. Letitia shudders at the thought that if Christoph hadn't returned, She might have been forced to face Gilbert as an enemy in battle. She vows to protect his happiness at all costs, determined to ensure that dark future never comes to pass. A voice interrupts her internal vow, calling out her name with a tone of familiarity. Letitia turns to see Roland Oswell, the eldest son of the family renowned for magic stone processing. She notes that the once timid man now carries himself with a different, more confident air as he asks for Gilbert. Roland offers to keep her company until the prince returns, citing a prior engagement that pulled Gilbert away. Internally annoyed, Letitia wishes people would stop treating her like a delicate doll, especially now that she is Gilbert's wife. She spots Empress Morgan watching from the shadows despite the official announcement of her absence due to illness. Realizing the Empress is threatened by Gilbert's recent success, Letitia decides to avoid a battle of wits for the moment. Roland persists in his attention, stepping closer and asking if the prince has been neglecting her. He points out that she hasn't eaten or drunk anything since arriving, looking at her with concern. Letitia smiles inwardly, thinking of the true reason, which is entirely for Gilbert's sake. She is saving her appetite to enjoy a delicious meal prepared by her husband later that night. Placing a hand on her chest, she dreamily declares that her heart is already full, hoping this excuse will suffice. Roland completely misunderstands, loudly accusing Gilbert of cruelty for forcing his wife to starve along with him. He causes a scene by shouting that Gilbert is paranoid about poison, leaving Letitia dumbfounded by his leap in logic. Letitia's internal monologue boils with rage as she dismisses Roland's concern, declaring that his actions are not born of love but mere possession. Her gaze turns icy and terrifying, revealing the dangerous intensity hidden beneath her doll-like facade. She realizes with disgust that this man's own delusions are running wild, letting his twisted fantasies cloud reality. Noting the Oswell house's liberal upbringing, she decides she can no longer tolerate this disrespect. With biting scorn, she mentally compares him to a beast, observing that even a dog in heat possesses more restraint. She condemns his behavior as utterly shameless, her patience completely exhausted. Gilbert suddenly intervenes, stepping between them as Roland stammers that he only approached because she seemed lonely. Gilbert cuts through the excuses with a sharp retort, asking if Roland is truly unaware of his own behavior and suggesting he carry a mirror. Looming over the terrified man, Gilbert mocks him, stating that a mirror would show exactly how predatory he appears to others. He taunts Roland further, betting he would notice his own lustful expression before he even started drooling. Gilbert coldly accuses him of lusting after another man's wife and asks if he is prepared to face the severe consequences. Roland freezes in terror, sweating profusely as the weight of the prince's threat crashes down on him. Letitia watches the confrontation with amusement, internally joking that her master is really fanning the flames of this campfire. A stern voice interrupts the chaos, admitting the scene was satisfying but warning that such behavior is unacceptable at a celebration. The speaker is revealed to be Duke Ivis, a man deeply involved in the judiciary and known for his strict moral conduct. Letitia notes that her father's rigid nature is why the Orlesian family is surrounded by shady rumors and why they don't get along. Gilbert stands his ground, insisting it is only natural to warn a man who was making inappropriate advances toward his wife. Duke Ivis suggests they consider the matter settled if Roland agrees to keep his distance, attempting to de-escalate the situation. Roland desperately interrupts, claiming there is something that must be clarified despite the unpleasant words he just heard. He turns to Duke Ivis and Gilbert, stating with feigned concern that the matter involves Letitia's health. Addressing the crowd, Roland reveals that she has stopped eating at social gatherings, citing a rumor that started after her marriage. He accuses Gilbert of ordering this, warning that her delicate body might collapse and demanding the order be revoked immediately. Letitia is furious at the implication, asking Gilbert if she truly looks so weak that skipping a single meal would cause her to faint. Gilbert looks visibly distressed, stammering as he tries to process the sudden public accusation. Roland presses the attack, pleading with the prince to reconsider and calling forced, one-sided love nothing but disgraceful. He accuses Gilbert of dragging Letitia into his curse, this time, causing Letitia to pause at the specific wording. Her eyes widen in realization as she mentally questions what he means by this time, sensing a deeper history. Gilbert clicks his tongue in frustration, his expression darkening at the mention of the curse. A close-up of an eye emphasizes the intensity of the emotion and the gravity of the accusation. Letitia reflects that the word curse continues to eat away at Gilbert like an actual hex, backing him into a corner he shouldn't be in. Furious that Roland is digging into old wounds, she fights the urge to summon an ice dragon and freeze their mouths shut. She turns to Duke Ivas, intending to invoke the fairness of the law, but quickly stops herself to avoid causing a scene that would harm Gilbert. Deciding that rumors must be fought with truth, she resolves to show them reality in her own way as the doll princess. She apologizes to Duke Ivas for the commotion, claiming it is her fault for not explaining things clearly. Turning to Roland, she assures him there is no need to worry because this fasting is entirely her own choice. With a radiant smile, she declares that she has simply become someone who cannot be satisfied unless she eats the food her husband prepares. She reaches out to Gilbert, her words melting the tension and leaving him stunned by her public declaration of devotion. Overwhelmed with relief and love, Gilbert scoops her up into his arms, holding her close amidst the sparkling atmosphere. The crowd and Roland watch in silence, the accusation shattered by the couple's undeniable affection. Buried in his embrace, Letitia whispers a soft apology to Gilbert for causing so much trouble. Gilbert silences her apology with an intense gaze, whispering that her reliance on him is never troublesome but rather a delight. Letitia loudly declares that no greater happiness exists than saving her appetite for a meal prepared with love by her husband. She smiles coyly at the crowd, claiming that a little hunger is merely a spice to enhance the pleasure of his cooking. They embrace passionately in front of the stunned guests, exchanging whispers of mutual devotion that leave no room for doubt. Gilbert openly professes his love for Letty, his voice filled with an affection that melts the tension in the room. Duke Ivas watches the display with a knowing look while the guests marvel at the couple's undeniably sweet atmosphere. The Duke admits he was rather tactless for interfering, realizing the depth of the bond between them. He bows respectfully to the couple, offering a formal apology to Letitia as Gilbert holds her possessively in his arms. Letitia accepts his apology with a graceful smile, happy that their performance successfully conveyed their affection to the public. Internally, she chuckles that her planned speech was unnecessary since their public display of intimacy was far more convincing. Gilbert addresses the guests while still carrying his wife, announcing their departure since they have caused enough of a stir. He wishes Crown Prince Kristoff continued success before turning his back on the party to whisk Letitia away. As they leave, Gilbert locks eyes with his brother Kristoff, a silent and heavy understanding passing between the two princes. The tension breaks as the guests begin to applaud, signaling the end of the dramatic interlude. Kristoff stands alone in the center of the hall, watching his brother's retreating figure with an unreadable expression. The guests whisper in awe of the Crown Prince's presence, noting that the atmosphere has finally returned to normal. Letitia glances back, sensing something unsettling about the way the situation was handled. She realizes with suspicion that Kristoff, despite being the host, remained completely silent and left the conflict entirely to Duke Ivas. Gilbert interrupts her thoughts by asking if they should head home, prompting her to shake off her concerns for now. He promises with a dark intensity that tonight's dinner will be prepared with even more love than usual. Leaning in close, he whispers that he wants her to savor every single bit of his affection. Letitia blushes furiously at his tone, stammering that she is looking forward to it despite the double meaning. She teases him about his melted expression, questioning if his choice of words was intentionally suggestive. When she suggests he be mindful of their surroundings, Gilbert dismisses the crowd, claiming his love for her is the only thing that matters. He challenges her with a smile, asking if she truly thinks he could ever be distracted by another woman. Roland watches them leave with a bitter expression, muttering that Gilbert's overwhelming confidence is simply unfair. He clenches his jaw in frustration, forced to accept his defeat as the couple walks away wrapped in their own world. Letitia clings happily to Gilbert's arm, humming a tune as she anticipates the delicious meal waiting for her. Just as they reach the exit, a sharp, piercing gaze from the staircase stops Letitia in her tracks. She turns to look but finds nothing, left wondering what that chilling sensation was as they step out into the night.
Letitia rests her chin on her hand, gazing intently at the peaceful face of her sleeping husband, Gilbert. She recalls a troubling missive from her father warning of suspicious military movements in Swayman, a development that likely forced Gilbert to exhaust himself with additional duties. Despite the mounting pressure and his fatigue, Gilbert displayed an unyielding determination to secure a 3-day reprieve, insisting on carving out time solely for the two of them. Letitia chides herself for not prioritizing his health over her own desire for his company, but her guilt softens as she observes the depth of his slumber. Gilbert stirs, his eyes fluttering open to find Letitia's face inches from his own. He murmurs her name, disoriented by the late hour, and stares in disbelief when he calculates that the sun has already reached its zenith. Sitting up, he rubs his neck, realizing his body feels lighter than usual, and accuses Letitia of watching him sleep the entire morning, though his tone carries more affection than annoyance. Letitia internally battles her own composure, noting how Gilbert's recent physical training has amplified his charm to a dangerous degree. She struggles to endure the intensity of his gaze, feeling his overwhelming allure strike her defenses like a physical blow. Gilbert notices her flustered state and reveals the motivation behind his new physique. He confesses that he sculpted his body not for battle, but specifically to captivate her, offering every inch of himself to her without reservation. Letitia panics internally, wondering where he learned such seductive phrasing, while Gilbert closes the distance between them. He reminds her that while the law of the land permits marriage at 15, he respects the restriction that delays consummation until she turns 17. Asserting his dominance as the older partner, he vows to refrain from crossing that final line, but challenges her to admit that he has successfully made her heart race. Letitia concedes defeat in their game of seduction, admitting he has bested her. However, Gilbert refuses to let the moment pass lightly. He leans over her, his eyes dark with desire, and questions if she truly understands the invitation she extended. He touches her, declaring his intent to drown her in a sea of happiness until she melts, testing the limits of his own self-control. The atmosphere thickens with heat until Gilbert abruptly pulls back, his breathing ragged, acknowledging that proceeding any further would violate the boundaries he swore to uphold. Gilbert collapses beside her, burying his face in her shoulder, and apologizes for nearly losing control. Letitia, far from offended, finds his struggle against his own instincts incredibly endearing, though she cannot bring herself to say it aloud. Recovering his composure, Gilbert promises to spoil her thoroughly once she comes of age, warning her not to back out when that day finally arrives. Letitia accepts the challenge, looking forward to seeing his mature facade crumble once more. Their intimate peace shatters suddenly when a loud tremor vibrates through the room. Letitia sighs, instantly recognizing the magical signature of the disturbance. Outside the window, Faucon presses his face against the invisible magical barrier Letitia erected around the bedroom, tears of pain streaming down his face from the impact. He begs, Princess, to remove the ridiculously strong ward, but Letitia merely laughs, content to let the intruder suffer while she continues to enjoy her day off with her husband. Faucon, a spy secretly serving the Orlesian family, who specializes in stealth techniques and sensory-blocking magic. Sent by the family head, Adolphe, to serve under Letitia, he acts as her eyes and ears, utilizing telepathy, a wireless communication magic usable only by mages, to exchange power and hold direct conversations. Despite his mastery of stealth, which is considered the best among the Duke's house, Faucon finds himself in a compromising position, hiding his face from Letitia while she sits on a bed with Gilbert. Letitia, noticing his reluctance to show himself, questions if something happened, but Faucon insists he is hiding for certain reasons regarding his dignity as a master. Letitia assures him that she has taken care of his appearance, but Faucon remains obstinate, maintaining a magical barrier. Faucon eventually releases the barrier, though he appears flustered, apologizing to the princess for the delay. Letitia confronts him, demanding to know why he erected a barrier against her. She chastises him for his carelessness when he lets his guard down, noting that while she trusts him, his slip-ups allow her to witness Gilbert's adorable side, a sight she intends to keep for herself. She warns him to report immediately in the future, fearing urgent situations, and Faucon, overwhelmed by her charm and authority, stammers his agreement, realizing that despite his calm demeanor, he is susceptible to her charisma. Gilbert, observing the interaction, blushes deeply, realizing his possessiveness over Faucon, or rather, the attention Faucon gets from Letitia, is stronger than average. The atmosphere shifts as Gilbert expresses a desire for Letitia to be even more possessive, stating he would be happy if she locked him up or tied him down, demanding he look at no one else. Faucon, witnessing this intensity, notes that while he knew the princess had feelings, this level of clinginess from Gilbert is dangerous, even without his Dragon Emperor mode active. Faucon dismisses the display casually, valuing his own worldview over the couple's intense dynamic. It is revealed that despite his lack of manners and etiquette, Faucon's cheerful personality, a result of being spoiled by Letitia's father after being orphaned, has allowed him to build a friend-like rapport with Gilbert, who values his honesty amidst a court filled with dark rumors. Letitia summons a messenger sparrow, a magical creature created from a user's energy, to deliver a report. The sparrow, unlike Letitia's combat-oriented ice dragon, specializes in recording voice tones and conversations, allowing Gilbert to discern true feelings from the audio it captures. Gilbert listens to the playback, which consists of real voices, and decides that now is the best time to act. He resolves to make time for Letitia but remains secretive about the specific work he is undertaking, merely stating he needs to take responsibility for the trouble caused by the Orlesian family's downfall. Gilbert commands Faucon to send 3 sparrows with messages to Alicia, the Emperor, and Lord Adolphe. Faucon is shocked to learn the sparrows have names, Chun, Chu, and Chu-Chun, given to them by Gilbert, who felt it would be sad to leave them as merely Sparrow 1, 2, and 3. Letitia observes the birds and notices they look different, mirroring their targets, such as the Duke and the Emperor. This attention to detail makes Letitia reflect on her own dragons, which she refers to by number, causing her to wonder if she should name them as well. The narrative pivots to political maneuvering as Gilbert hands Faucon a final letter addressed to Leon Orlesian, Letitia's biological older brother. Leon is the head of the noble faction of the National Investigation Unit, a special force directly under the Emperor responsible for maintaining order and investigating corruption, even within the imperial family. To prevent power concentration, the unit is split into royalist and noble factions. Although the Orlesian family's influence has declined, Leon remains trusted by the aristocracy. The letter Gilbert sends contains confidential accusations, and he wears a mischievous grin as he initiates this plan, anticipating the outcome. With the preparations complete, Gilbert urges Letitia to relax and take a well-earned break. When Letitia asks if there is anything she can help with, Gilbert insists that her presence alone gives him strength, both mentally and physically. However, he firmly requests that she leave the matter to him this once, preferring she rely on him as her husband rather than the other way around. He points out that she already depends on Faucon, Alicia, and her father, and he wishes for her to depend on him as well. He mandates that the ice dragon remain her guard and extracts a promise that she will call him if anything happens. Letitia agrees but feels a deep sense of unease. As Gilbert leaves to make a snack, Letitia reflects on his secretive nature. She deduces that Gilbert plans to let Leon take the credit for the investigation to restore the Orlesian family's reputation, using the evidence Gilbert found regarding the scandal that caused their downfall. She realizes Gilbert feels responsible because the events started with their marriage. Despite understanding his noble intentions, Letitia feels frustrated and sidelined. She knows the crime involved is significant enough to engage the National Investigation Unit, and she laments that Gilbert will not use her power, the power of the Dragon Emperor, or trust her enough to let her help, leaving her feeling unable to reach the deepest part of his heart. Letitia reflects on the sudden disappearance of the foremost magical beast, an event that compelled her to request the Dragon Emperor's subjugation efforts. A letter from her father confirms her fears, and she notes that the time she and Gilbert spend alone has withered away with each passing day. In the solitude of her room, she strikes a match, the sudden flare illuminating her resolve. She reasons that if her father is investigating, her interference is unnecessary, yet she refuses to remain idle while Gilbert shoulders the burden alone. Seeking to sharpen her mind and become a partner Gilbert can rely on, she heads to the Rossman Castle archives to immerse herself in knowledge. The archive stands silent and empty as Letitia enters, noting the absence of other souls in the nation's core. She spies an intriguing title on a high shelf but finds herself unable to reach it, even with the aid of a nearby step stool. As she stretches in vain, a taller figure intervenes, plucking the book from the shelf with ease. Letitia identifies the woman as one of Empress Morgan's maids. The maid hands over the third book from the top, and they exchange apologies for the intrusion. The maid observes Letitia reading with such composure and remarks on the rumors spreading about Gilbert. When Letitia inquires about the nature of these rumors, the maid addresses her by the moniker, the Belle Poupée, praising her elegance. Letitia acknowledges the maid's veiled hostility, typical of Empress Morgan's staff, but decides the rumors hold greater weight than a servant's attitude. The maid offers to return the books to the shelves, citing her professional pride. Letitia ascends the step stool once more, concerned by the ominous creaking of the wood. She realizes she failed to notice the furniture's wear when she previously utilized the Dragon Emperor's form to cheat her height. The wood snaps and Letitia plummets. Before she hits the floor, the maid catches her with unnatural reflexes and strength. The maid checks for injuries, but internally curses, realizing he let his true self slip out in the heat of the moment. Flustered, the maid deeply apologizes and attempts to retreat, fearing another blunder. Letitia detains the fleeing servant by asking about the rumors once more. The maid relents, leaning in to whisper the details. She reveals that while the truth is uncertain, talk suggests Gilbert is the ringleader planning a massive incident to shake the nation, despite the fact that he is currently the one pursuing the investigation. Letitia dissects this information, noting that Gilbert currently holds the king's trust and the backing of the Orlesian duke, making such a plan foolish. She suspects the true culprit is attempting to pin their crimes on the cursed prince. The maid adds that the curse of the red eyes still holds sway over the older generation, fueling the rumors. Letitia then probes into the relationship between Gilbert and Prince Christoph, recalling their interaction at the celebration party. She describes their dynamic not as hostile but cold, like viewing a bothersome insect, and notes a faint awkwardness that has crept into their conversations since the prince's return. She likens the tension to a small bone stuck in one's throat. Suddenly, a voice interrupts her analysis, asking if she is truly curious about him and his brother, as Gilbert himself appears behind her. Reddy approaches her husband with a sponge in hand, declaring her intent to wash his back while suggesting they take a bath together. Gilbert, the Dragon Emperor, recoils slightly, stammering that they are newly married and such intimacy might be too early for them. Reddy presses forward, questioning his hesitation and insisting that she simply wants to pamper her husband more and more. Gilbert struggles to formulate a rebuttal, his protests dying in his throat as she demands he stop asking questions if he understands her intent. Reddy flashes a sparkling ring on her hand, announcing that today she will pamper him specifically in her Dragon Emperor form, seeing absolutely no issue with the arrangement. Gilbert stares blankly, his face flushing as he tries to process the logistics. He attempts to compromise, grabbing her shoulder and suggesting that if she is uncomfortable as a woman, he will accompany her as a man. He argues that a bath between men should present no unorthodox problems. Reddy abruptly cuts him off, burying her face in her hand, and demands he think critically about the nature of a bathhouse. She screams that nudity is mandatory in such a place, shattering his logic that clothes would somehow remain involved. She clarifies that they would be facing each other completely naked in that form, causing Gilbert to finally grasp the reality of the situation. However, Gilbert's concern shifts from modesty to hierarchy. He panics, realizing he would be standing beside the Dragon Emperor. He frantically explains that the Dragon Emperor represents the Alpha of Alphas, a being that surpasses everything. He confesses his inability to stand as an equal beside the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Emperor, feeling unworthy of competing with such majesty. Reddy stands perplexed by his sudden reverence and mysterious terminology, unable to follow his spiraling logic. Seeking clarity on this bizarre interaction, Reddy writes to her father to inquire about Gilbert's strange intentions, fearing her pride as a wife is at stake. However, the reply arrives from her mother. The letter explains that her father, Adolf, laughed so violently at the situation that he threw out his back and is currently bedridden. Her mother instructs Reddy to simply listen to Gilbert and avoid troubling him, leaving Reddy staring into the distance, the mystery only deepening. The narrative shifts to the rumors surrounding the Ice Dragon Emperor, described as possessing a beautiful, ice-like face that never twitches even before an enemy. People claim he is like a statue of a man, commanding ice dragons with zero emotion. Contrary to these rumors, Gilbert sits with a warm, gentle smile on his face, touching his cheek in a display of softness. Reddy, disguised in male attire, stares in shock, noting that the man before her is always smiling, shattering the cool image she expected based on his reputation. Gilbert notices her staring and inquires about her reaction. Reddy criticizes him, claiming that while smart, he is clueless about people's feelings and affection. She admits she imagined a cool, expressionless beauty based on the Ice Dragon Emperor title and calls him dull regarding romance. Gilbert reacts with shock, asking if she is calling him an idiot. Instead of getting angry, he laughs and kisses her hand, interpreting her frustration as adorableness. He explains that anyone would smile when next to the person they love. Reddy blushes, overwhelmed by his direct affection. Gilbert vows to spoil her as much as he wants in this form, dismissing any further questions as a sign that the Dragon Emperor simply hasn't shown enough affection yet.